Hi there. Alrighty, today it looks like we're going to be working with John, who is a 7-year-old in second grade, and we have just finished administering the QRI-6 with him. And that's an assessment that we're using to determine his reading level. So that way, when we're helping him pick out his best fit books that he's interested in, we can also be taking into account his reading level. So that way, we're not giving him books that are too difficult, but also not giving him books that are too easy. We want to boost his confidence in reading while also making sure that we give him books that are a little challenging. All right, so looking here, we started with just some word lists, some lists of words for John to read out. And this column here signifies the words that he was able to identify automatically. He did not need to sound them out. He did not need to pause for them. He automatically identified them. And these over here were words that he also was able to identify, but maybe needed to decode or sound out. So that way he was able to understand the word after a little bit of effort was put in. So the words here with the C symbol are the words he has correct. And the words over here that have a red word, that is going to show us his pronunciation of that word where it was not necessarily the correct pronunciation. DK, meaning he did not know, just so that we are able to understand the words that John understood. So looking down here, we started in a primer, so that was just to get his brain juices flowing, just to get him started. So we had a little pre-primer, and he was able to function at an instructional level here. So what that means, an independent would be his level of understanding on his own. He's able to completely do this kind of material at his own pace. He does not need help from an outside source. Instructional would be work that he's able to complete with the support of a teacher or another individual who can help him, is maybe at the independent level of their own, and is able to support him, give him some scaffolding, give him some supports there that will help him understand. And frustration is an area where he becomes frustrated, and that area is an area that we typically try to avoid giving students books in because it can dishearten them, and it can lead them to dislike reading or disliking that book at least. So as you can see here in the pre-primer, we're mostly going to be looking at the correct words in total here because he did identify 9 automatically, 7 identified outside of the automatic zone. 16 altogether, that's great work. 80% gives us right here instructional falling between 70 and 85% of the words identified. So this is perfectly good for John right here with a little support. These words are perfectly fine for him at the instructional level. So let's keep going here. We have next, right here, we gave him another primer, so that way he started thinking a little harder. These words have a little more sophistication to them. And on this one, he did 17 out of 20 for an 85% correct. A few more words here were identified without automaticity, which is still just fine. He was able to use a lot of sounding out in order to find out words that he wasn't able to identify instantly. But I am noticing that John is not identifying a ton of words automatically. So what that is telling me is we may need to increase his work with sight words. So words that he's able to see and automatically know, because there are some words out there that are not very simple to sound out. Like take the word thought, for example. If I were to sound this word out as is, I would get thahagate. Not going to be the correct word there. John is going to need to see words like this and identify them by sight. So we will definitely be working more in class with sight words and probably sending home some homework as well to do with different types. So especially a GH, a GHT sound, that can be some work that we do in class and at home to support John here in order to get his sight word understanding at a higher level. So as you can see here, this is a first grade level right here. John is a second grader, and unfortunately there did reach the frustration level and at the first grade level. So that tells me that we have some support that needs to be put into place here. We definitely need to hit this hard. So he did not identify any of these automatically, and he was able to identify 9 of them. I will say in class, I have noticed John identifying more words than just 9 out of 45 at a first grade level. I would say that this is probably not reflective of his best effort, because I believe towards the end here he was becoming a little bit upset at continuing to read wordless. He did become a little bored. And so I'm thinking for the next time we would see if we couldn't space these out a little more. We did try to give this all in one sitting, so that way John did not have as much time in class taken up with this as possible, but he did become a little bit bored and rushed through. So he gave a lot of do not know answers when I'm not exactly sure that he wouldn't know if he had tried to sound out, like afraid might have been a word that he could have done. I have a feeling. So let's keep going. Now we're entering here some reading. So these are passages that I had John read out loud, and I was making markings on my sheet here as to what John was saying correctly, what words maybe he mispronounced, what words he omitted. So mispronunciations are written above here, and omitted words are circled. And also we were noting here MC, meaning that John switched the word in a sentence or made a miscue. So miscue meaning a mistake. He was miscued in a way that changed the complete meaning of the text there and might have hindered his comprehension, which is his ability to understand the text. We also see some C symbols here, and that just tells us that actually John went back and corrected himself after he realized maybe he had made a mistake. So maybe he had continued reading in the sentence and figured out, oh, you know what I had said back there was not really going to fit in well with this sentence. Let me go back and check. Let me go back and check my work. So in this one here, this one is a primer, so it is going to be a beginning practice. So we did have here, John did go ahead and enter the frustration zone with this primer paragraph or primer story. So in narrative, John did not really make it even to first grade level here, so he is a little bit behind. That tells me that we definitely, I think the sight words and automaticity will help here, because there were quite a few words that John spent time sounding out. So if we go down to the next one here, down here to actually narrative, let me move down to narrative level 1. So narrative level 1 right here, as you can see right here, this one gives you more of an idea of his prosody. So prosody is how well the child reads, like with what fluency. So in terms of his reading, he did reach a 2 on this one. So he reads primarily in 2-word phrases with some 3 or 4-word groupings. This one was a little higher than some of his others. Normally, John reads at a 1, which is reading primarily word by word with occasional 2 or 3-word phrases. He definitely needs some more practice with reading fluently. He needs practice with word recognition for sure. So those sight words will definitely help his decoding, his quick reading of a passage there. And he certainly needs to hear fluent readers reading more often. So of course in class we do a daily reading. We do reading out loud. We read in groups, small groups. But also, I think it would definitely help him if he were read to at home. I'm sure that you guys are doing an amazing job with that, but if you ever need some extra books for me to send home with John, just go ahead and let me know. I'm very willing to go ahead and send home some books at his level, also maybe some books at his instructional level, so that way you and he could read together. So, we do have here that John, in the primer as well as in level 1, did reach frustration. So we do need to work on, especially narrative. John did seem to do better with expository though. So let's look at those really quickly. So level 1 for our expository here, as you can see, he reached a 92% of accuracy reading, which is great for him. He's on the instructional level here. So that's level 1. John is definitely reading with support at a first grade level in expository. I can tell, and that makes a ton of sense to me, because I know that John definitely loves factual information. He's a science guy. He is a math fella. So I can tell that this makes a ton of sense to me, especially because he loves learning about topics that he's interested in. Science for sure. So this makes so much sense. But he did also read here primarily word by word with some occasional 2 or 3 word phrases. He definitely does still have a few issues with decoding here, and sometimes even reading words and leaving off letters or adding letters. So we need to focus on the details here when we are reading. Let's see. Also, something we haven't quite touched on yet is his comprehension here. So comprehension questions are telling us how well he understood the information in the passage. So here he did get 5 out of 6 questions correct, which tells us he's on the instructional level here. So with some support, John was able to understand the majority of the information in this passage and recall it with pretty significant detail. You can see he got quite a few here. This is a retelling, and we're able to mark off how much John was able to recall without any help. And that is pretty all right there. I'm happy to see this, and that tells me he's paying super good attention. I did want to bring your attention back down to the narrative for a second on comprehension, because he surprised me here. Although it was indicating here that his frustrational level was reached, I will say that in the comprehension, John got 6 out of 6 questions correct. So, although he was having some issues decoding the words and making a few miscues, none of those miscues seemed to skew his understanding of the text. You can see here that out of the total number of miscues he made, which was 23, only 5 of them changed the meaning of the text significantly, so that way he would not be able to understand the intended meaning. So that is some great news for his comprehension for sure. He is really doing a good job at understanding what the author means in a text, or what information he needs to extract from a text. We just need to support him in decoding the text himself. Our next step in the class would be to make sure that we're giving him that support for his sight words, make sure we're reading to him at a good fluency, showing him what a good fluent reader sounds like, what they look like, maybe even encouraging him to track along, because I do remember asking John to point with his finger. He did tend to lose his place when reading quite a bit. And so I'm thinking to help there, we might introduce a line reader, which will help him section off. It kind of looks like this with your fingers. Section off a line of text as you're reading, so that way you don't lose your place and you're only looking at one piece of text at a time, because John can tend to get overwhelmed and give up if he's seeing a large passage that intimidates him. And I do think that is what happened during narrative a little. I think that he did get a little intimidated, and some of the miscues he made were just simply skipping words or skipping lines that he might not have seen had he not been so nervous. So I'm thinking we can give those supports, and then I will go ahead and administer more assessments, track his progress in class, and we will go ahead and schedule back in another conference to check his progress in the future. Thank you so much, and have a great one. Bye-bye.